Yo, listen up, here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world. And all day and all night, and everything he sees is just blue. Like him, inside and outside. Blew his house with a blue little window and a blue Corvette. And everything is blue for him and himself and everybody around. Cause he ain't got nobody to listen. I'm blue, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die. I'm blue, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die, da-ba-dee, da-ba-die.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. And today we're going to be taking a look at a 1/18 scale Porsche 911 996 Turbo by Bburago. The 996 was manufactured from 1997 to 2006, but this model here, which is the 996 Turbo, first came out in 2000. This car is a rival to the Ferrari 360 Modena and also to the first generation Lamborghini Gallardo, which came out in 2003. I have reviewed the 360 Modena on my channel already, as well as the Gallardo Superleggera by AutoArt. So make sure to browse my channel after this review. Now, I got this car during an eBay auction for approximately €17, used without box, which is a fair price for an old Bburago. But two things I like about this car is, first of all, the condition. This is pretty much near mint, which is kind of hard to come by when it comes to 30-year-old Bburagos these days. And secondly, the color. Because this is in fact a somewhat rare Bburago, especially in this beautiful dark blue color, which I believe they call lapis lazuli blue. This car is quite similar to two cars actually. One being the much more commonly available pre-facelift 996 Carrera by Bburago, which however I think is an inferior model compared to this facelifted 996 Turbo. Main reason being the headlights on the pre-facelift 996 Carrera are textured and opaque, as opposed to being clear like on this facelifted 996 Turbo. And the other car that this one is visually similar to is the facelifted 996 Carrera 4S by Maisto. Not to be confused with the 997 Carrera S, which Maisto also made, which can quickly become confusing for non-Porsche people like me. Easiest way you can tell the 996 apart from the 997 is that the 996 has the fried egg kind of headlights, while the 997 has the more classic-looking round ones. So Maisto's 996 Carrera 4S has actually become extremely rare over here in Europe. And probably for a good reason, because out of these three aforementioned 996s, that one has the best build quality and is generally speaking the best 996 you can find in the budget segment. It's very similar to this 996 Turbo by Bburago, but but the headlights are even more detailed, without any transparent pegs inside. The taillights are clear instead of being textured like on this Bburago. And it even comes with red brake calipers, which are entirely missing on this Bburago. However, for that, the brake disc moves on this Bburago, while it doesn't on Maisto's 996 Carrera 4S. But more on that later. There is also an AutoArt 996 Turbo, but that is no longer in the budget segment. Costs a ton of money, first of all. And secondly, it is one of the older AutoArts which do not have raised side windows. But anyway, let's get started with the review. So when the 996 came out in 1996, it was very controversial for two reasons. First, it was water-cooled instead of air-cooled, and second, these headlights, which looked nothing like the ones before it, or the ones that came after it. But these headlights, which came to be known as the scrambled egg headlights, were actually taken from the Porsche race car, the 911 GT1. And I, for one, actually like them, because all the Porsche 911s have the exact same look and circular headlights, but this one stands out a little from the rest, which I like. And if we take a closer look at the headlights, you can see why I appreciate this facelifted 996 a lot more than the previous ones, because you can see just how clear the headlights are. Whereas, as I mentioned earlier, on the Bburago, the pre-facelift 996 had a completely textured headlight with no depth whatsoever, and it kind of reminded me of the W220 Mercedes-Benz S-Class made by Maisto, which also came with a completely textured headlight, while the facelift was the one that actually had clear headlights, and which has become extremely rare. And the light assembly is done pretty well. I mean, you can see that we have the main bulb, as well as the indicators to the right. And you even have texture on the bulb covers, but they do not get in the way of the actual bulbs, so that's very nice. In the middle, we have the Porsche logo, which is just a sticker, but it is slightly dented on the hood, so it kind of feels like it belongs exactly there. And we have a license plate down here, which says CAAR997. I'm not sure why it says 997, because this model is supposed to be the 996. What I don't like about it is that it's just a sticker, and because of the age of this model, you can see that the sticker has started to peel off a little bit. Both underneath the license plate as well as on either sides, we have air vents. And the cool thing about these air vents is that they are actually perforated on this Bburago, which is something that Bburago stopped making on, for example, the 997, because the 997 is a made-in-China model, but this 996 is a made-in-Italy Bburago. Another highlight of this often overlooked 1/18 scale Bburago 996 model is that the front trunk opens, and inside we have a ton of detail, which would really make you start doubting whether this is a Bburago or an old AutoArt. First, we're going to start with the liner here. You can see that there is a little bit of a pattern on it, an X-shaped pattern. And now if we take a look at this front trunk, we actually have two Porsche suitcases, which is amazing. And they even have the Porsche logo designed on them in raised lettering. Behind the two suitcases, we also have the spare wheel, which is wrapped in a wheel covering. And behind it, we have more canisters, probably for the spare oil and windshield washer fluid. And then up here, we actually have a perforated mesh, holes where you can see down through the car. And then back here is also another valve. So this is a very detailed front trunk for a budget model. Looks great. Even has a latch, so it stays shut. And now as we move on to check the side of the Porsche 911 996 Turbo, What I like most about the side profile are, of course, the wheels, because they have these beautiful 5-spoke rims on them in a sort of brushed aluminum look. But before we zoom into the wheels, I just want to show you this big vent right over here. And this is the easiest way that you can tell that this car is the turbo instead of the normal Carrera model. You'll also see that we have some additional air vents back here, so it's definitely more aerodynamic than the Carrera S model. And now if we take a closer look at the wheels, another clear indication that this is the turbo variant is the turbo is written on the center of the wheels, and it's surrounded by 5 lug nuts. What I like most about the wheel, though, is the quality of the brake discs, because these really look like the high-quality photo-etched and completely cross-drilled aluminum brake discs that you may find in an auto art, rather than the cheap chrome-looking ones that you will find in a vintage Bburago. So Bburago definitely outdid themselves with this brake disc. Unfortunately, there is no brake caliper, though. However, the brake disc does move with the wheel, as it should, so that is great. And then you can see that because this is a vintage Bburago, you will also find tire wall branding. Most notably, it says Eagle F1 and Goodyear. So taking a look at the back of the Porsche 911 996 Turbo, you can see that the back looks really nice. I mean, the tail lamps are in this silver and red, and under certain light conditions the red actually looks like it's glowing, like the taillights are turned on, which is really cool. Unfortunately, there is a peg right dead center in the middle. However, it only becomes most obvious when you look at it like head on, exactly like from this angle. But if you change the angle, then it becomes less obvious. So it's not as annoying as the pegs on the Bburago 997, for example. In the middle, you can see that it says turbo. And then on top of it, we have the third brake light, which is just a red sticker on the spoiler. Below, we have the European German license plate, again saying the same thing as it does on the front. And then we have these 2 chrome-tipped exhausts. Now, they were completely out of chrome. I just took a black Sharpie and I colored in the centers so that they look a little more realistic than they did when I purchased this model. And now if we move on further up, you will notice that we have these vents on top of the engine. And they are a little warped. I don't know if you can see that. Like they're not perfectly straight. And this is a problem with some of the vintage Bburagos. I've seen this problem also on the Ferrari Testarossa. I've seen it on the 288 GTO. And I believe also on the 348. Because these are made out of thin plastic and sometimes they warp, sometimes they don't, so always make sure to look out for that when you are purchasing one of these old Bburagos. The rear windshield looks pretty nice, and it has this massive single windshield wiper over here, which is also pretty good looking. But now let's check out the engine. And to do that, you just lift the rear engine bay like this. And the liner here is done pretty well because we actually even have a turbofan molded into it, which looks really nice. But this is probably where we come to an issue that I have with this model. Because as you can see in this picture, this is what the engine of the 996 Turbo is supposed to look like. You can see that there's this big black plastic part that covers the engine. I believe it carries some of the air boxes that feed air into the engine, and all of that is missing right here on my model. Now, I'm not sure why. Is this maybe because it broke off at some point and the previous owner didn't notice it, or perhaps Bburago released like 2 different versions of this 996? I'm not sure, because if I try to close the engine lid, you can see that there isn't much room left for any additional plastic pieces that would otherwise block this mechanism from properly closing down. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this way or whether a part is really missing. I mean, I did manage to find a picture on the internet of another Bburago 996 Turbo, which also showed no black plastic air filter over the engine, so please let me know in the comments if yours looks different. But I don't mind this too much, because this is what the real Porsche 996 Turbo's engine looks like, and the one on my model looks pretty similar. And this engine is taken straight out of the 1998 Le Mans winning 911 GT1 race car, namely a 3.6-liter twin-turbocharged flat 6, producing 414 brake horsepower at 6,000 RPM. But from 2002 onward, there was also an optional X50 package that had a more powerful turbocharger that would raise the engine's power output to 444 brake horsepower, making the car capable of accelerating from 0 to 100 kph in 4 seconds, and have a top speed of 307 km per hour. And that X50 package, along with some dashboard improvements, became standard issue in the 996 Turbo S. So the air filter is missing, which kinda sucks, but I guess you can see the engine better this way. And now let's check out the interior of the Porsche 996 Turbo. We'll start with the dorsal branding. You can see that it says Turbo down there. And then the door cards here are also done pretty well. We have the speakers down there, although they're not separately painted. And then we have the door handle right here, which is also not separately painted. But now if we check out the interior, I really like this combo of the dark blue exterior and the tan interior. It kind of gives off a little bit of the old school auto art vibes. These windshield wipers are also done pretty well, by the way. I didn't show them to you earlier. There's even like perforated holes here. And there's even more perforations here on the dashboard. So now we check out the interior. You can see that we have a really pretty center console. Although the center stack is just a sticker, you can see that we have the controls for the radio and everything. You can even read the temperature there. I think it says 22 degrees Celsius. You got the buttons for the radio stations and everything. And then here we have the glove compartment, which I think was not standard issue on the first 996, like the pre-facelift one, but it came with the Turbo and some of the later variants as well. The floor doesn't have any carpeting, but take a look at this. It actually even says Porsche down there in like raised three-dimensional lettering, which is pretty cool. And we also have this sort of texture here for the feet. And this is of course a 6-speed manual, although there was also a 5-speed Tiptronic available. There's no cup holders on this version though, but the Turbo S I think came with them. And considering that this is a 911, there's actually 4 seats instead of 2. So this is a Grand Tourer, but the leg room at the back is very small, so mostly just to put your kids back there or maybe some extra luggage. I think these are cup holders though. I'm not sure if you can see them, like this one, and then there's another one over here. But yeah, seats are done pretty well. They've got a nice texture and side bolstering. And then over here you can see that we have the seat belts, which are made out of plastic. And then over here the seats also have this little hook for the seat belts. And there's even a liner at the top. So this is not just bare metal. So taking a look at the driver's side of the Porsche 911 996, you can see that the steering wheel is done pretty well. It does have the Porsche logo on it in the center. It's just a sticker though, but it is there. And the instrument panel is also quite readable actually. You can see that we have these gauges, and every single one of them is readable. Down there we have chrome floor pedals with a little bit of a texture on them. Handbrake. And yeah, that's about it. The back seats look a little weird because they don't seem to have like any lower back portion. But yeah, it's a pretty cool car, I think. And here's a look at the bottom of the Porsche 996 Turbo. You can see that this is a very detailed chassis because this is a made in Italy Bburago. But let's start with the Bburago logo here. It says Porsche Turbo 996 1999. Made in Italy, 1/18 scale. And just the amount of detail regarding this engine is pretty amazing. I mean, you can see that it has like all the air hoses, intake manifold that leads into the engine. There's a lot of depth. You can even see like the belts right there. And then over here we have the limited slip rear differential. A lot of depth, and that's what I like about these old made in Italy Buragos. So yeah guys, I hope you liked the review of this classic Porsche 996 Turbo. It's a vintage Porsche 911. I love this dark blue and tan color combo on it. I also appreciate the amount of detail in the front trunk. And while I'm not entirely happy with the engine because I feel like there's something amiss, I still think that overall this is a very good looking model car by Bburago. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to compare this with Bburago's made in China 997 911. So I'll bring it right now and we can see the comparison, but I'm just going to give you another shot over here from all angles. So here we have the 911 996 Turbo right next to the 911 GT3 RS 4.0, which is like the ultimate 997. Both models are by Bburago. Both are in the same price range. Of course, the left one is no longer available, while the right one was released just a couple of years ago and has been re-released, so most online retailers still have them in stock. And here's a look at their backs. The 996 Turbo's spoiler completely dwarfed by the 997's massive wing. And I love the 997's livery, but I had to return it due to reasons explained in its review. Because yes, I have also reviewed the 997, which you will find linked to at the end of this video. So hope you find the time to watch that as well. So hope you enjoyed that comparison. As always, please feel free to subscribe to this channel if you like all these car reviews. And I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out. And here are my other reviews. So feel free to watch them, and I'll see you there.